By clicking here, you're either on a reliability journey, you're thinking about starting a reliability journey, or you're lost and you're just wondering who this guy is with the big forehead. Hopefully it's the former. Joe here, filling the gap between reliability, best practices, and reality. The reality that you face as a maintenance and reliability professional, a plant manager, a leader, a driver of change. So hopefully I will fill that gap for you and provide executable solutions, things you can implement next week. Not things that make you feel good on Friday, get you all pumped up across the weekend. You show up for work on Monday, 7 o'clock in the morning, everything falls apart. These are executable solutions that have taken me 32 years to accumulate as a plant manager, as a department manager, as an engineer, as a facilitator of change across the globe in this space. Most of the results, the ones you target, you can get results in 30 days once you start working on them. Pretty easily to implement and to see a sizable improvement to your bottom line. Why are we here? To me, one of the things that motivates me is, I believe better plants mean better communities, mean better lives for everyone. Let's face it, as a maintenance professional and anyone in leadership position, your life is hard. Driving reliability makes everything better, especially your lives. Today's topic is to compare 4 reliability deployments. I get asked about this all the time, and there are many ideas out there. And if you look at reliability maintenance publications, there's dozens of ideas. I boiled it down to 4, and the one I recommend is unique, and you'll see that. So let's get going. So this is a chart I made to reflect my experience with reliability deployments. And you'll notice I called this the sponsorship curve. You'll see why in just a second. First of all, to get your bearings here on this chart, on the y-axis, positive results are up, which means positive financial results, positive throughput, sales, OE, whatever you want to track is actually positive. Down is obviously negative. And then on the x-axis, you'll notice I have culture times 0. You are here. So as you progress towards the right, on the x-axis, that means you're making positive change. You're advancing with solutions that are sustainable and buildable. And as you go to the left, you're actually eroding the culture. You're going back in time. It could be demoralizing people. The assets are getting worse shape, whatever it may be. So let's take a look at the 4 deployments. I call them do nothing, cost cutting, traditional reliability deployment, lean-driven reliability. Do nothing, okay? You can see that here at time 0, you gradually degrade, okay? Now you're degrading because of inflation, you're degrading because assets are getting older, you're not properly maintaining them, and the results go down, and there's this yellow starburst. The yellow starburst is a sponsorship change. Boom, something happens. We got to do something different. So that's important to note. One other thing inside of this do nothing category, I'm including people and locations that have a couple reliability folks off in the corner doing some predictive maintenance, but it's not part of their main game. Most of what they're doing is reactive maintenance or time-based maintenance, stuck back in the 1960s. So I'm putting that as the do nothing option. Okay, next we can move on to the cost-cutting option. You notice that you can get some immediate results, immediate positive results financially. Controller loves this kind of things. And then you hit an inflection point as you go negative in culture, where it drops off rapidly and you end up with another yellow starburst, and we got to do something different. The assets aren't running right. We're spending more money. It's just all bad. That's the cost cutting. Unfortunately, that's the most popular deployment of reliability, is to say, cut your cost, and every month cut your cost more. Traditional heavy deployment. Okay, this, again, time zero, takes enormous amount of investment. You hire a high-powered consultant, they come in, they train everybody on what the journey they're going to do. They're going to do a self-assessment. You're going to add planners, you're going to add reliability engineers, and then you're going to start spending millions more, depending on the size of your plant, obviously, to get the assets into a maintainable, steady state shape so then that you can deploy those practices. The problem with that journey is what's front end loaded with cost, and then it takes time. It takes 2, often 3 years to reach this inflection point. And most of the time, our sponsors, our plant managers, our VPs can't stand it that long, and they say we got to do something different. Boom, yellow starburst. There is an option 4, very infrequently used. Quite frankly, I don't know anybody else recommending it but myself. And this is from my experience, my 32 years. And I'm calling it lean driven reliability, which just happens to be the name of my company I just started after retiring from a Fortune 200 company. And what this process entails is finding the waste that is unique to your plant and putting in simple solutions to impact that waste within days. And then continuing to build on that. And then once you get to a point of saving $200,000, $300,000, which usually is fairly quickly, again, depending on your plant, you ask for reinvestment of that. Say you only have 1 planter and you need 2. Well, don't ask for the planter up front. That's this purple deployment. Let's get some easy savings, make sure that we're utilizing all of our people to their highest efficiency. We're utilizing all of our procedures to their highest efficiency. And then once we get savings and eliminate the waste, we ask for a percentage of that back as investment. Notice that there's not a starburst on this option. The critical thing about this is it attacks waste and you get results quickly. Not as fast as cutting cost. Okay, let's be honest. That's easier. But this is a method I've deployed at a couple of my locations, and actually, when I was in a consulting role for a large company, implemented this at dozens of locations. So, wanted to share that with you.
Credibility is the key here. The plant manager, department manager, vice president, they get 10 new ideas a day that somebody says, I want to head this direction. I want you to invest in this. I want you to invest in this. With a reliability deployment, you have to give them confidence that your investment is worth it. Okay? And I'm sorry to say that. You have to convince them that it's worth it. A lot of the people in those elevated sponsorship positions, they didn't grow up through maintenance. They didn't grow up through engineering or through reliability. So you have to be a good salesman. And that salesman, from the strength of credibility, means everything. Okay, so what's next? Okay, I promised executable actions. Action number one, you need to understand what the 7 forms of waste are. Okay, I'll attach a link to a YouTube video on that. There's dozens of them out there. Some use 8 forms of waste. Toyota and Lean typically uses 7. There's an acronym for remember them, Tim Wood. But you can look that up. I'm going to give a couple examples here. For example, waiting on production. You may not think that's a big deal. But I promise you it's going on in your plant. I've seen dozens and dozens of examples, and here's one of maintenance is going to change out the cables on a big overhead crane, and the crane's still in use. So the maintenance people go back to the shop, get a cup of coffee, wait. 2 hours pass. It's first break. They go on first break. They come out. Then the crane's ready. You just lost 2 hours. 2 hours from a coordination issue. Is that an anomaly, or just happens to be when Joe's watching? Or is it part of the daily routine? And being part of the daily routine means that the planner now schedules that job with 2 hours of waste baked in, and the KPIs miss it altogether. There's an example. Waiting on lockout, tagout. An extreme example that I witnessed, I had 8-person crew on an outage, and they couldn't agree on how to lock and tag the equipment. They were down the full 8 hours, planned outage, and didn't do any work. The outage was extended by 8 hours. The whole job was because it wasn't planned well, but that didn't show up in the KPIs as well. Just all got fuzzed there together. So you got to see these things. And one of the cute things that I've enjoyed in in my travels is I show up at plants at the most unusual day that the plant has ever had. That's day one. And guess what day two is? The second most unusual day that the plant has had. So guys, this is reality. You got to go out and see it. You got to know your waste. Okay? So understanding your waste is number one. Every single tool in your reliability toolbox, whether it's planning, scheduling, kitting, work control, problem solving, whatever it is, it's designed to attack waste. Planning goes after wrench time. Reliability engineer goes after mean time between failure. They're all designed to attack waste. So you got to understand your waste to begin with so you know what sequence to apply the tools. Just because I have a saw and a hammer doesn't mean I'm a carpenter. I know how to use both of them. Doesn't make me a carpenter. I got to understand how it all goes together and all those tools work together to make a cabinet or to make a chair. Same thing with your reliability deployment. You got to understand your waste. Action number one, watch a 5-minute video on the 7 forms of waste. And I'll have another video in the future talking about that. Action number two, stop saying we need to cut cost. Stop letting others say need to cut cost. Cutting cost needs to be taken out of your language. You need to be that difficult person that says, you mean you want us to eliminate waste. Reframe that conversation. So when your boss comes to you and says, hey, Monday, hey, we're looking like we're going to have a bad quarter, bad month, whatever. We got to shave, $200,000 in cost this month. What are your ideas? You need to stand up and rephrase that to, you're wanting us to find waste and accelerate our waste elimination efforts, not just cut cost. This forces the boss to be accountable for the direction that they're setting in the organization. When you say cost cutting, what's the organization hear? They hear defer maintenance, defer rebuilds, cut overtime, take more risk, ignore the mean time between failure action items that we discovered last month, ignore all that stuff, and just take more risk. Put another bullet in the chamber and play Russian roulette. That's what the organization hears. They actually fear this, and it's linked to attrition at my plants, where people say, hey, I'm concerned about the company when you say cutting cost. Now, when you say waste elimination, people are energized by that. Hey, we need to attack waste. We got a plan. We're going after waste. We're trying to do things better. Who can be against efficiency and waste elimination? It's an easy rallying point for people, and it's engaging to the organization. So this is a big deal. This may seem small, but I want you to be that difficult person. Give this a try for 30 days. Anytime you hear cost cutting, reframe it to waste elimination. What we need to do is double down on our waste elimination efforts. Isn't that what we want to do, what we really want to do? Because next month's going to come. We're going to have next month's challenges, next quarter's challenges, and cost cutting, all it does is mortgages the future. You're taking out a loan against the future that's usually bigger. That $100,000, delay in spending this month is $125 next month. That's a bad deal. So you can see the key to your reliability deployment rests in waste, understanding your waste, attacking waste. Hopefully this takes you from a position of being powerless because somebody won't invest in you won't let you hire somebody, so you get discouraged. You can't hire that planner, reliability engineer, or another supervisor. You can't buy better equipment, can't hire a consultant. So you go from that sense of powerlessness to powerful. That's what this journey with lean and lean-driven reliability will give you, that sense of being powerful. Waste, so where is it in my plant? Hey, it all hinges on that, Joe. Where's in my plant? Well, the first place most people look, and I hate to show my emotions on my sleeve here, is in KPIs. And quite frankly, KPIs are heavily biased. If you don't think they are, you need to check it out. I treat KPIs like my 16-year-old teenager telling me what they did last Saturday night. It's information, it points me in a direction, but there's probably some details missing. Those details are your waste. They're your waste. You need to understand that. Those are the easy pickings to get after to give you a start on your journey. You got to understand that. You know, a couple examples of that. You know, one plant I went to, let's take a look at their planned work percent. You know, they had a very high planned work percent. Let's say it was 60%. But one of their major planned jobs was to do unplanned work. So we have 8 standby mechanics, and their planned job for next week is to do unplanned work. Therefore, it is planned work. Now, you may have to rewind that to get that, but they're planning their unplanned work. Guys, that's a 15-yard penalty. You know it, I know it. But you don't see it until you go out and observe it and see how that is tracked. That's an example, and several plants have that. That was not an anomaly. You know, a second one was, inefficiency, in planning. Planning often adds time. They're held accountable for schedule compliance. So that if they ask for a piece of equipment to be down 8 hours, they're held accountable for that equipment returning, and hit and go after 8 hours. So they may plan a 2-hour job for 8 hours just in case something goes wrong, and just in case something goes wrong in a different part of the plant where those people get pulled off, and they still can come back and get the work done. Everybody's happy. Next day at the daily management, we all feel good that we got that job done in 8 hours when it was really a 2-hour job. Is that happening at your plant? It's happening at 90% plus of the plants that I've been responsible for. You know, mean time between failure. You know, that data, mean time between failure may be 1 year, okay? Say it's 1 year. But when you go out and observe and see and you understand what procedures are supposed to be happening, for example, there may be some operator care where an operator is supposed to be oiling that crust breaker, or they're supposed to be topping off the oil of that motor every single shift. And then you talk to the operator and they're not doing it. So they don't do it, and the mean time between failure is a year. Well, what would it be if they were doing that proper maintenance? So that is an easy form of waste to attack. No money, no cost, no hiring of people. But you got to understand it, okay? And you got to understand it outside of the conference room. There's a disease in manufacturing. This is the strongest point I want to make in my whole presentation. There's a disease in manufacturing. And that is, we're so busy reading our emails, we believe our KPIs, we go to our daily management meetings and we have groupthink in meetings, and we decide what's the next action to take. We've gotten away from being on the shop floor. Years ago, there was no email, and you got your information from reality, from talking with the operator, from observing the process. You spent hours on the shop floor. Here's your test. You as a leader, when was the last time you spent 4 hours observing a work crew, one work crew for 4 hours straight? What about stood at a critical piece of equipment that is your bottleneck for the plant? When was the last time you spent 4 hours in one spot watching the experience that machine feels, if it could feel? When was the last time you did that? 4 hours, 8 hours? What about 2 days? There's a process called Chalk Circle by Tiochi Ono, O-H-N-O. Look that up. That is action number 3. Easy action number 3. Look that up on YouTube. Very simple. I think it's like a 3-minute video, and it talks about Chalk Circle. Now, don't get if you just type in Chalk Circle, there's some band called Chalk Circle that's not too bad of music, but type in Lean or Ono, O-H-N-O, to get the right video. It'll take you 3 minutes, and that's action number 3. Let's see. I'm going to make sure I get this. Observation, a couple examples from that. I was responsible for a few dozen plants. And, you know, these plants communicated to me that they had a wrench time all above 35%, some above 50%, and they were using a process called work sampling to get that data. Some of them had thousands of pieces of data saying our wrench time of our craftspeople is 52.375%. I don't know why we needed all those decimal points, but that's what we got. In my chalk circle exercises, of let's say 10, I maybe between 9 and 11 locations that I went to and spent intense amount of time observing, I didn't see a single plant above 20. So every plant said they were above 35, several of them above 50, and not one was above 20. A few of them were in the 10 range, the low teens. Okay, so what decisions are you making as a leader with that? You may be trying to hire mechanics, hire electricians. You're trying to hire people, and you're delaying the person being a kidder or a planner because you've got this manpower gap. Well, if you take wrench time from 15 to 30, you got twice as many people getting work done. So you're making bad decisions. Also, another example at a plant. This was in the United States. They had a PM on a piece of equipment, 8-hour PM, about 4 guys I think were working on it. And about an hour and a half into that PM, production said they needed the asset back. So maintenance buttoned the thing back up, put all the covers and everything back on, didn't do a single PM, not a single action, closed it back up, closed out the work order, said the work was completed. So 6 months from now that a piece of equipment fails, this looks like that PM was conducted. Does that happen at your location? Only at the ones that I go to. Only the plants. So here's some advice. Don't invite me into your plant. I see bad things. You're making bad decisions if you're using KPIs, you're using emails, you're using people's opinion, daily management meetings to drive your decisions. I promise you, you're making bad decisions. So action number 3 is look up chalk circle, OHNO, OHNO, and that brings to 3 actions that I'm asking for. I want you to look at 2 videos and then stop saying cost cutting. Those are your actions. If you like what you're hearing, hit subscribe and hit that little bell to give notification for my next video I post. I'm looking at doing one a week at least. And thank you. Have a nice day.